Hey guys, I'm Steven Farnsworth.
And I'm Grant Babbitt.
And you're listening to It's a Dad Thing podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of It's a Dad Thing podcast. Steven, welcome back. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm good. It's I stand by the fact that we're still in 2020, part 2 or whatever you want to call it. We are
2020 plus, since that's the
2020
thing.
plus. Is that what it is? It's 2020 plus?
Yeah. That's what everyone's adopting, the hey plus.
Got it. Yes.
Yeah.
I thought it was like Die Hard 2020. Like that's it. Or no, that doesn't work. Die Hard, that's already a movie, isn't it? I gotta think of a better. By next week when we do this again, I'm gonna think of a better title for 2020 because it's never ending, Stephen.
Yes.
Here's why I say that. It's not because the news is bad, but it's because we live in Los Angeles, and it snowed here. It snowed at our house in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles, not up in the mountains.
We live in
not up in Big Bear or something, like where they actually ski.
Yeah, it's not at a ski resort. It's where we live. Where we live is the base, the foothills of the mountains. But where we live, it hasn't snowed for like 50 to 100 years or something crazy like that. It hasn't snowed forever.
Yeah.
And granted, I'm not talking like Midwest or back east, like a blanket of snow. I'm talking LA, California snow. But basically, what happened is I was coming home from the grocery store and I just pulled up, and it's been cold, it's been rainy, and I say cold and rainy as in like it was less than 50 degrees, which is really odd for us. And I think it was, I don't know, maybe 45 degrees or something. And I pulled up and I knew it was raining. Then all of a sudden these like white chunks were hitting and landing on my windshield.
You're like, what is this falling from the sky?
And I'm like, hold on, this isn't, because it hailed like I don't know, maybe a month ago. It hailed. Yeah. And it was, it was intense. And I was like, wow, this is like the closest thing to snow we're ever going to get. Yeah. Okay. Yes. That at the time, that was the closest thing to snow, and it was hailing and it was crazy. And by the morning it was melted, so the kids couldn't see it. But this was one of those things that like, this was snow in the fact that these were little snowballs that they would come down and they would hit the windshield and they'd splatter. And I knew, like, I don't think it was actually flurrying, but when I got outside out of the car and my hat brim, the snow would hit my hat brim and then it would like splatter everywhere. It was like it was this flurry that was coming off of my forehead. So it was amazing. And that being said, in a totally LA sense, it snowed and it was crazy. But so yes, 2021 is now 2020 part 2 snow day in LA. Like, I don't know.
Now, but it was snowing. Did anybody see it? Was it just you, or did your kids actually get to see it this time?
Yes. So yes, good question, Stephen. Thank you. They did. I'm so glad, because it was daytime, right? So when it hailed, it was overnight. Usually if it's going to get that cold, it's going to be close to close to low 30s, maybe. I think we get to like 34 degrees or so is about as cold as it's ever really been while we lived here, which is very cold for us. But even then, I mean, by the morning, it's warm enough that everything's melted, right? And so this was, I don't know, 2 p.m. or something like that. I mean, it was early in the day. It was midday. Kids are doing school at home. And immediately when this happens, I pick up the phone and I call my wife and I say, hey, listen, the kids need to get their clothes on, or what? Just like come, like look out the window. Like, I don't know how long this is going to be. This could be a matter of moments.
Move just now.
Look out the window. Do it. Yeah. Shoes on. I don't care. Whatever. Just look out the window. So they open the door, and keep in mind, here's the thing. My son, my oldest son, has been, when we say like, hey, if we don't live in LA, where would you want to live? And he always says Canada. Like, and I'm like, oh, well, either he must love hockey.
He's like, the health insurance, Dad.
The health insurance. Yeah, it's universal health care. That's funny. No, yeah, he loves his maple syrup. But no, it's funny. He says Canada, and I'm like, well, I'm like, why Canada? He goes, well, it snows every day there. And I'm like, well, okay. It doesn't snow every day there, but I totally understand the sentiment.
Right.
Like, I understand what you're trying to say. you want to be somewhere where it's cold. You want to be able to see snow. If we lived back in
Right.
Kansas still, where when my wife and I grew up, we would see snow, but we don't. And unfortunately, that's
Right.
not your childhood right now. So anyway, that being said, he said his one Christmas wish this year was, even though I know for a fact he had other Christmas wishes, which were, I want this, this, and that. The
Sure.
one thing he keeps saying is, his one Christmas wish is he wanted it to snow. And so having that in mind and calling my wife and saying, like, look, kids need to come outside as soon as possible. They come outside and I just sit there in my car, and I've still got my mask on and everything because I just come from the store. So I'm like,
Right.
stay back from me, whatever. And I see my son look out, look around, look at the ground, and see and realize that there is white falling, right?
Right.
And I just see his face just go, and it just is that just overwhelming joy in his face, that feeling of like, my Christmas wish came true.
I said it, and then now it's true.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it was just like so much joy in him, and just so, I mean, just pure, genuine happiness. And it made me think, and I saw that, and of course, like, that is one of those moments, like, I feel like I'm gonna remember that for a long time.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something that you see that and you go, gosh, this is like what it means to be a dad. Like, seeing our kids experience that, seeing them enjoy that, that moment, that's what it's all about, right? We go through all the mundane stuff, the day-to-day, the tasks and all that stuff, so we can get to like the one fun thing, right? The one cool part, or whatever. Like, it's
and
like
you
we
never
work
know
all
when
year.
It's going to happen. I mean, I think that's the big thing about these little moments, and part of what we wanted to talk about today is you just don't know when they're going to happen. There's things that you like want to manufacture as a parent, like, okay, we're going to do this thing and it's going to be wonderful and amazing, and we're all going to sit and look at the stars, or whatever that is. And sometimes those work out and sometimes they don't, but it's these little moments like where you're just like, oh my God, my kids have to experience this right now. Like, we got to do this thing because I don't know how long this is going to last.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I mean, yes, this is a, experiencing that moment for myself. And I started talking to Steven. I said, Steven, this is what we want to talk about, because us as dads, like, a lot of times, depending on what you're doing, I mean, we're busy, right? Parents in general, moms and dads, we're busy. It doesn't matter if you're working or if you're not working, if you're taking care of the kids, if you're, this responsibility, whatever.
Right.
Life moves fast, right? And it's hard for us sometimes to really understand and understand that the moment that we're in is that moment, right? We're not like, it's that, a lot of times, I don't know if you ever get the experience of like, oh, if I could only have this, then I'll be happy. If I could only do this,
Right.
then I'll be happy. I know a lot of times we do as parents, we say, hey, if you can just brush your teeth, then you'll have this bedtime story, right? And what happens is, I think when we say, hey, I'm dangling the carrot so you can get the reward, we do that to ourselves. And, kids, they're so just genuinely themselves and experiencing life for the first time, like we are not anymore, that they just, that you just see their joy and see their happiness. It kind of revives like what it means to be a dad to me. And so anyway, that's what we want to talk about today. We want to talk about what these little moments mean, and really like what they mean to us, what they mean to our family, what they add to our family. And then what we want to talk about then is we have a few things that are maybe what are holding you back, right? If any of you feel like, and I say this myself, right? I hold myself back from a lot of joy and a lot of small moments because I have certain things that are in the way, right? I'm busy, I'm thinking about work, I'm doing this, and I can't experience that joy. So we're going to talk about that today, and maybe some of the ways we can kind of work through that so we can really find joy in the little moments. So, Steven, I'll ask you, what is a moment that, that you can think of, that whether it's recently or whether it's been a while, like, what is a moment that you either watched your children just experience joy, or you yourself, a moment happened and you went, this is really insignificant to anybody else but me right now? I mean, what is there? Can you think of a moment like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, in particular, what I'm thinking of right now is like, for instance, our kids homeschool, and so we get to see a lot more of their schooling than most parents do, or we know maybe a little bit more where they're at than than maybe traditional school, because we're interacting with them on a daily basis. And so just like coming by, like on like, because I try to keep my hours in my office or whatever that is to try to get some work done. And so like when I'm coming through after a meeting or at lunchtime or something, and I hear like one of my kids, like especially my littlest, like sounding a word out, matching words, you know, when the child when we first met him, he didn't even speak English, you know, and now he's like able to speak English and he's able to read it. He's able to write it. Like just those little moments where, and you know, while you're working with him and he's like, hey, I know how to sound, like, hey, sound this out. You don't know what this word is, but let's work through that, you know. And he does that. Again, that might not be very significant to someone else because they're like, I mean, big deal, he's 6 years old, like that's what he's supposed to do, you know. But you're like, no, but you don't realize how far this kid's come, and for him that's a huge deal, you know. And so again, it's like that little moment, but it's only per kid, because like for my daughter that's not a big deal because she's like reading chapter books at this time. She's probably read more books in her life at this point than I have, so it's just you know what I mean. But each kid has their own kind of thing, you know, that were these little moments that we talk about.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I have 100 different moments, but for some reason, probably just because I just shaved my beard off. But this is the thing that one of the things that always gets me every time I decide to go from having a beard to like having not a beard anymore is my favorite thing is always to hide it from the kids. Like there are times when I'll have them help me shave my beard or shave my head, right? And they love it. They enjoy it. I find a lot of joy in it. But what's like really fun for me is when they don't know that I'm shaving my beard off, or I like the other day before I went full face nudity, I had a mustache, right? I had a big Tom Selleck mustache.
Nice.
Super sexy in my opinion, but not in anyone else's opinion. Yeah, but that's okay. I do it for me.
You got to try some stuff.
you got to try some. Oh, I knew about it. I knew it looked good to me. Anyway, but the fun part is like, you know, I'm getting out of the shower and I'm drying off, and they'll come in and they inevitably, right? You're in the bathroom. It doesn't matter what you're doing. The kids are like, hey, this is my hangout spot, right? So they come in and I'm drying off and and I always have the towel over my face because I know what's coming. And then as soon as one of them asks a question or something, I go, that's a good question. And I drop the towel and then I just look at them with like, what, you know, this new dad face. Right. And just that look on their face, like of like a mix between excitement and joy and happiness. And then also horrified, like, who is this?
Who is this?
That for me, that is one of those little moments. Like it's so insignificant. It's so like,
see, I'm glad that you get a positive experience from that.
Oh yeah.
Because I actually, and this was probably a year ago at this point, because time just kind of is irrelevant at this point, but it's, what was funny is I went and got my hair cut, and then while I was getting my hair cut, they were like, would you like a shave? And I was like, yeah, why not? I'm feeling a little like, you know, okay, let's do that, you know?
Yeah.
A little like straight razor. And I was like, feeling a little good about myself. So I did it, you know, the whole, you know, I was all naked on the front. I came home. I almost got disowned by my whole family. They were like, get out. What in the world are you doing? I mean, like outwardly, like my kids, my wife, all of them were like, what did you do? And it was like one of those things that I was like, oh crap, I can't grow this back quickly. This is not going to disappear. This isn't like, what shirt are you wearing? So I'm glad you got some positive reaction from that, because I definitely didn't.
Don't be wrong. I've been where you've been many a times. I just have chose to look at it differently now. Like that, like, you know what I mean?
Perspective.
It's perspective. It's all about perspective. And I think that's really what these little moments are about too, right? Because, you know, in your situation, we're talking about like getting a haircut, getting a shave, whatever it is, right? There's been plenty of times where, I mean, one of the best moments that really looking back is the best moment, but the time it was like, it's cute enough to be funny, but I'm also like, my feelings are still a little hurt, is like my daughter, early on, I had shaved my beard off, and it was my daughter, maybe it was my oldest son, but anyway, my oldest son shaved my beard off. Before that, we'd been playing and everything. I get in the shower, I go shave my beard, come out, he gets in trouble. And I'm like, hey, dude, you can't do that. That's not okay. Don't do that to your little sister. Don't do it to your little brother, you know, whatever it was. And he gets so mad at me and says, I want my other dad back. And I could totally just take that negative, right? Because again,
Sure.
he's saying,
Yeah.
I don't like you right now.
We don't like
Get
you.
it? Right? I get it. But in a way, he's also making a jab at like, I don't like your new face haircut. Like, I don't like that. So, it's like a twofer. So
Right.
luckily it's just cute enough because he's just
Right.
little enough and cute enough. Like if he's a
Yes.
teenager saying that, you're like, hey,
Right. He's
get
not
over
14 years
it.
old.
Get out of here. Yeah. But he's just cute enough and just right where you can look at that and go, okay, I know what you're saying is you don't like me right now, but you're so
Right.
cute. And what? So I love you. I'm gonna let it go, and you find joy in it instead. And
Right.
so that's one of the things. Like we'll talk about this list now. Is that we put together a list of things that get in the way of finding joy. And like you're talking about, like, yeah, that can be a joyous thing. It can be something that's exciting. It could be something that's fun. But it's all about how you look at it. And it's, my wife is really great with having these conversations with me because I tend to be someone who has negative loops. Have you heard that phrase before? Negative loops?
I have. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, negative loops. And we talk about like, your bad things that play over and over in your head, right? If you're not familiar with negative loops. And she is all about trying to curb that negative loop and trying to say something positive, right?
Right.
So so this is our way of trying to say, hey, you may have these things that are getting in your way of finding joy, but let's find some ways to work through it. Okay. So here's one of the first ones, right? This is one of my favorite phrases, okay, when we're talking about this. But number one, things that get in your way when you're a dad trying to enjoy life and trying to enjoy these little moments. Number one is don't should on yourself. Okay. Don't report us to the podcast police here. We're not cussing about it. What we're saying is don't should on yourself. Okay. So Steven, I'm sure I'm sure you have some insight onto this. What do you think I'm talking about when I say you shouldn't? That doesn't work. You shouldn't should on yourself. When I say let's not should on ourselves, right? What should we do as dads when we should not? I can't even say it. I can't even say it the right way. Don't should on yourself. And here I am shoulding myself not to should. All right. So don't should on yourself. Steven, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think what I really take that point as, and I love that phrase, is when you look at a situation and you're like, it should be this, right? Or that should be a certain way, or something that, hey, this is what we're supposed to do, right? And I struggle with this a lot, where it's like, okay, well, we have to do this and we have to do that, and because that's the way that my family experience was, and that's the way that my dad was, or you know what I mean, like that's the way things are. And a lot of times those can get in the way of those special moments, because where kids might, what I've noticed that at is bedtime. That's the big one that I've noticed it at. Is I'm like, hey, for us it's 7:30, you're getting ready for bed, 8 o'clock lights out for our boys. That's the new rule we came up with. It's just a slightly different one from the last one, but by golly, I am, especially now that I'm home every night and I'm, here all the time, I'm like 7:30, I don't care what you're doing, go get to bed right now, and then I'm lights out at 8 o'clock, but what sometimes that does is those rules are good in intent, like it's good to have your kids go to bed and put PJs on and do all those things. But sometimes those little funny moments where they're like maybe a little giggly or things, maybe it's 7:45 and they're still like, messing around and going to bed. Those are sometimes those little moments where you can have fun with them. And that's okay if they go to bed at 8:08, or, you know what I mean? Like it's this construct that you've created, and hey, this is what it's supposed to be. And a lot of times that can get in the way of those little moments, is kind of what I see that.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. I think of a lot of times, but I know my Chiefs are now in the Super Bowl again. Okay, I'm super excited about it.
Congrats.
I know. Hey, listen, I've been a lifer fan, and we've had some.
I mean, you're not going to win because Tom Brady's going to beat you. We all know that. That's just all written in the stones.
I mean, Tom Brady's got the refs on his side, right? Doesn't he? He has NFL in his pocket. Is that how that works?
Yeah, he's deflating footballs and the whole thing. Yeah.
Google it. You'll know what I'm talking about. Okay. Anyway, yeah. No, but think about it. Like I'm in a household of 4 kids and my wife, and very rarely do I get to sit down and watch a full 3-hour football game and like peace and quiet, or like, okay, I'm gonna enjoy this all the way through, right? So that's a great example of trying to find little moments that we should be able to enjoy, right? Should be able to. Now here's the thing. When my kids sit with me and they ask a bunch of questions, I really do love that they're trying to learn the game. I love that they're trying to learn the rules, or trying to learn why this player does that. But I think a lot of times when they win, or when something happens and they don't get excited, I'm like, you guys should be enjoying this. It's the same thing as if we watch a movie and they don't understand it, but I go, this is a good movie. You should enjoy this. You should laugh at this part. You don't do that. These are things that, that seem insignificant, but we are expressing how things should be instead of how things are. And how things are is that I got to sit and watch a game, maybe not for 3 hours, but I got to watch some of it as opposed to watching none of it. Right. My kids are asking questions. Yes, they're talking during all of the parts that I want to listen to, but they're asking questions about the thing that I'm interested in. That's cool. Right. So it's finding that perspective and switching it from it should be this way to it's this way. To, not take it or leave it. That's what I was about to say. Hey, it's this way, take it or leave it. But it's this way. What's positive about this thing that we're doing, right? And what's positive about this experience? I'll move on. But when I proposed to my wife, absolutely nothing went the right way. Okay, other than the fact that she said yes. I'm telling you. Long story short, the person who is supposed to be filming my proposal in secret was late to the actual thing. So I was there and trying to like hurry my wife around, and instead of proposing to her like I was supposed to, like, hey, I'm gonna walk her to this place, I'm gonna stand right here, I'm gonna say my little speech, I'm gonna propose, you're gonna say yes, boom, got it on camera. Like that was how it was gonna go. None of it happened. Absolutely none of it. The person showed up late. I had to stall. Then I had no service. Then the place was closing. Then there's people kicking us out. And then by the time we finally get to where we're supposed to be, my wife has already seen the person and recognizes the person with a camera in their hand that's supposed to be filming us. She knows everything that's going on. And then to top all of it, for some reason, there's coyotes going, oh, 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 oh. And that's all my wife could talk about. And I'm going, don't worry about the coyotes. No, don't. So that's a great moment of like, that is when I want to put things in perspective, that shouldn't have went that way. That should have went differently, but it went the way it did. And now we've found so much joy in that memory. And that's one thing I'm going to try to share with you dads, and remember, like, maybe this didn't go the way you wanted to, but remember, this moment is something we can take some positive away from. We can find some joy, even if it seems negative in the moment. There may be something positive that you can look back on and really enjoy with your children. Okay, Steven, you got the next one.
Yeah, another one that to kind of watch out for, right? This is another thing to just keep in mind is you really don't need to be perfect. This idea as a parent that you're going to be perfect, that somehow what I'm going to do is not going to make my children run to therapy is not true. It's just there is no perfect parent. There's no way to actually do it perfect. If you look at our parents and then their parents, everyone seems to be correcting based on of the events that they went through, right? And so the big one here, for me, is beating yourself up, right? Like it's that kind of like, I messed up here, or I should have done this. Like, for me right now, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've been telling the kids for literally 3 weeks now, hey, we're going to get your money and we're going to put it in 3 different jars and we're going to teach you about this thing. And I just keep running out of time in the day. And I'm like, oh my God, I still don't have the jars. I'm gonna look like such an idiot, but that's not the intent, right? Like, because then you divert your attention to, I'm a bad person, I'm doing bad things, I'm messing things up, rather than being in the moment with them, and being able to adjust to those things. But what would you get out of that? Like that whole need to be perfect?
I think you hit it right on the head. I mean, I go back to the analogy of like when you're driving on ice. Right? This is parenting. You're driving on ice. If you go too far to the left, You don't want to turn too far back to the right and overcorrect, right? And then if you overcorrect, then you're turning all the way back left. I mean, that essentially is parenting through the generations, right? My parents didn't love me enough, so now I'm going to love you and I'm going to smother you. Well, then the next generation goes, I was smothered, so now I'm going to give you your space. And then here you go, and you have this like passed down through the generations of like, you know, we're not perfect. We didn't do these things, and now I've got to overcorrect. And so that's, I mean, that's big picture thinking for all of it. But, you know, for me, when I'm thinking little picture, the being perfect thing is like whenever, I mean, I know we haven't been out in public because of the pandemic for so long, but, you know, I think of like the grocery store trip and your kid is like screaming at the top of their lungs and you're the most embarrassed parent in the whole world. And other parents are like, yeah, been there. Right. But if it's not a parent, that's not the people you worry about. You don't worry about other parents.
No,
right.
No.
You don't have to look perfect.
They're all like, yeah, I got you.
Yeah, gotcha. Hey, yeah, you're in it now. Just you know, it'll be over. Don't worry. Yeah. So I'm, you know, they're okay. It's the people that don't have kids that are looking at you and that are judging.
Yeah.
Like for some reason, as a parent, I can't enjoy certain moments because I'm thinking about that being judged, right? Even if it's judging myself. Hey, I didn't do that right. I could have done that better. I'm going to beat myself up, just like you said. Having that ability to take a breath and go, you know what? I didn't do that right, but I can do it better. I'm capable. Taking that breath, giving yourself some grace. I mean, that's you're going to mess up, right? And your kids are going to mess up, and we tell them, hey, it's okay. Look, you get on your bike. It's okay if you fall off. Don't give up. Well, dad, look at yourself, okay? You're going to mess up as a dad. You are going to mess up every day, no matter what. Even if you think you are doing the best thing, you will mess up, right? You will do things perfect with your kids, and they will still be, quote unquote, messed up at some point. You are not perfect. You know, this is just part of it. So give yourself that grace. Now, don't give up, right? Don't give up on working on doing things better, but don't just say, I can't do this and I'm done trying. Because that's what this means to me. That being said, here's the next one. Worry is a big one for me, and it's probably why I don't have very much hair left. Worry is the thing that stops my joy so quickly. Stephen, I don't know if you have the same amount of worry that I do, but I mean, I've had anxiety pretty severe since I was about 18 years old. I'm 36, about to go on 37 now, so you think maybe I could have a handle on it now, but it's different. It's just different anxiety. Instead of worrying about myself all the time, now what I do is I worry about my kids. And this one to me, it means this is what I see when I talk about worry being in the way of finding joy in the little moments. When I watch my kids and they are laughing and playing and they're having so much fun and just screaming and they're loud and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that stuff is like, I want to be right there in the middle of it with them. I'm not watching that and enjoying them always, because what I'm seeing is I'm seeing all of the sharp corners that are available for them to hit. I'm seeing all the things that are there for them to trip on. I'm seeing all the things that could happen and that this could whip around and hit their eye and this could do that and blah, 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 blah. All of these things. And it's taking away from those moments of saying like, they're laughing and they're playing together. Nothing's happened yet. I'm just afraid or worried that it's going to happen. And I know there's 100 different iterations of this, but that's like the one that hits me constantly because we've been at home, we've been stuck at home, and they're playing and they're having fun instead of fighting finally. But here I am going, stop, because you might hurt yourself. Okay.
Well, do you get that like where you have a good moment? Maybe you have like, hey, we had a great dinner as a family, or we watched a movie or whatever it is. Do you have worry right after those moments? Like worry of like, oh, well, like that was the best moment that we're going to have.
No, I don't think I've experienced that, because usually I pretty much live life going, I know life is a roller coaster. So I know when we have ups, we'll have downs. You know, if we can manage that, that's one thing. So I don't know that
yours is more in the moment, like when it's happening.
Yeah. It's more just worried that things like part of having anxiety, and at least my anxiety is, you know, if you want to figure out what is your best worst case scenario, right? If you're like, I haven't planned for these things, what could go wrong? I'm your guy, because that is how my brain works. My brain finds everything that could go wrong and goes, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. That's why, you know, when it comes to like being precautious, or, for like COVID and stuff, it's like,
Mhm.
I was kind of made for that, because that's what my anxiety is there for. Right.
Right.
But when it
It's
comes
the
to
danger.
parenting, yeah, exactly. But when it comes to parenting and saying like, I'm going to give my kids like, let go of the leash so they can have fun and they can enjoy, it's really hard. Like that part of it is hard for me, because I'm
Yeah.
so worried that they'll get hurt or whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't feel like I have this gene, but I feel like that almost my wife definitely does. That's why I asked. The question that I asked is what she struggles with. We have a
Gotcha.
good moment, and then she's like, they're gonna die. I just know it. That was like the last time. And I'm like, wow, that went south really quickly.
Sure.
But I think it's like I think in this way, I sometimes disassociate a little bit. So my problem is bringing myself back into the human world, as my wife would say, and not being so robotic about it
Got it.
is where I struggle in this area, not necessarily the worry, because like I I'm the one pushing my kids to ride bikes in the neighborhood, and I'm the one pushing them to, we're like five, I don't know, 7, 8 houses down the street, and I'm like, okay, go home and take your brother home right now, and I'll stand here and I can kind of see the house,
Mhm.
and I'm okay with that. But Sarah's like, oh my God, what in the world's happening? So, but it's like I kind of have to bring myself into that a little bit because I can be a little robotic. So that's my my own
Sure.
thing with
Sure.
that, which
Sure.
is
Well,
which is hard. Like it's the worry thing, right? But it's also for me, it's like I have to bring myself into these moments a lot because I'm such a future thinker that I'm like, oh, I'm already in June this year, like I'm already like working through the June problems, and
so
my
I'll
wife's
pose
like,
it.
we're here.
Yeah. So I'll pose it this way. Do you ever have a sense of worry of like, this is happening, but I'm missing it because I'm looking so far forward?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's what you, okay.
That's what, yeah, because I'm like already like, okay, what are we doing this weekend? Like it's Tuesday, and I'm
Yeah.
already like, okay, what are we doing this weekend? Do we have plans this weekend? And do they like, I know the next weekend we're going to be doing this thing, and I'm already backing in from the move that we're going to make and do these things, and so I'm already there. And but then my wife's like, no, 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 but we're here
Hmm.
enjoying a movie, like be here with us,
Yeah.
and so I might worry about things like my worry really comes from, did I teach my kids the right things? Did I
Hmm.
That's where it's that need for perfection. Did I
Yeah.
teach them how to cook? Did we teach them finance stuff? Like, what else am I missing? Oh my God, what else should I know? That's
Hmm.
where I come from, but it's not really in the moment. So that's
Yeah.
interesting, kind of like, and I think in the big thing in this one is to know that you're not alone. Like in this worry
Yeah.
phase, everyone worries, and I think that's a good like question that you brought up. Everyone worries in a different way. Like we all have this kind of way of like, oh my God, are we doing things correctly? Or are we doing, is something bad going to happen? And you're not alone. So like,
Hmm.
don't, give yourself a little grace, and that's okay. It's worry is like a natural, like human reaction to certain things. And so know that you're not alone, and you're not the only one that's struggling with like an anxiety or a worry, and that there's other parents that are out there doing this, and still being successful parents.
Hmm.
And so hang in there, like hang in there,
Right.
and that's okay.
Yeah. And,
And I
and
think that,
worries, oh, I was just saying, and worry is not always a bad thing, right? Worry shows that you're
yes,
caring about something. And that's
yes,
that's what's so positive here. I mean, the one thing that I really I just completely lost what I was going to say. So sorry. I really,
it's gonna be good though. I can
it
feel
was
it.
going to be so good. I'm worried that I was going to say the wrong thing, and then I did. No, here's the thing: is worry is so different for so many different things, so many different people. Worry obviously can show that you are caring. It's the whole trick is like a little bit of worry is okay, right? They Oh, that's, and now I got it. I got it back. I remembered it.
There it is.
Um, Someone once told me, here's the thing that happened to me when I had a young child. I mean, we have a baby now, but when my oldest was our youngest, when he was a baby, they'd always say, "Hey, how are you sleeping?" Okay, well, you're not sleeping. You have a newborn, right?
Hmm.
And then once he got older and he was a toddler, "Oh, how are you sleeping?" "Well, we're sleeping okay now."
Right,
But I asked some people who were older, some people that had kids that were either teenagers or had moved out of the house at one point, and I said, "Well, when
right,
does it feel like you can sleep like a normal person again? Like when are you going to get
right.
that? Like when you were single?" And they're like, well, when does it get better? And they're like, oh, no, it doesn't get better. Like what you're doing now when you're sleeping and like you're worried about your newborn, like
right,
that's not that hard. When they're teenagers and they're out driving and you're waiting for them to come home,
I'm
that's
not
when you
ready for
can't
that.
sleep. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't even think about that. So that's the thing. It's like,
Yeah.
it's, worry is relative to where you are in parenting.
Yes.
But the thing you think of is like, I think of sleep. When you become a parent, you literally will never sleep the same ever again, because you're not just worried about yourself anymore. You are worried about someone you love. You're, as I
Yeah.
tell my kids, the heart outside of my body. Right. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, worry is not a bad thing. It's when you over worry and when when you're having these like repetitive thoughts, or it's, like we're talking about,
Right.
the worry that's rejecting or not allowing you to enjoy these moments. Like if your kids are laughing and playing, let them laugh and play. If they get
Yeah.
hurt, then you take care of them. They may learn a
Right.
lesson. I say that
Right.
it's really hard for me to do, but that's what I'm going to try to continue to do with with the
Yes.
worry. So,
Yeah.
I can get the joy. So anyway,
Well, this one for me goes a lot into our next one. Our next one is really about being your kid's event coordinator, right? Like this idea that you're planning out every moment of their life, and I think I'm very much that way because I'm a planner. I'm a producer, so I'm used to like organizing things and setting milestones, and that's kind of like the world that I live in. But it's really increased during the COVID time because now we're all together the whole time. So now dad is home all the time, and so there are things that I think have gotten better. That we have a daily chore now that we do to kind of like help clean up the house and set up some like pace ourselves so we don't have to spend an entire Saturday cleaning. We're doing some things like that. But the downside of that can be that I become more of like a drill sergeant, and that every moment that they're awake, I'm having them do something productive, and that can really take away, because then again, I'm not allowing for those little moments to happen.
Right.
I'm not allowing for there to be some space, like they talk about, this downtime can actually be like really good for kids, that the kids can actually, there needs to be some space. I think there's good things in structure. I think kids need structure and be able to anticipate things. I know our kids work really well in that, when they're like, okay, it's school time. Yes. And then we're going to have lunch, and then we're going to do this thing, but I think you have to kind of watch yourself a little bit, especially for someone like me that's super plan oriented. And I showed you my schedule earlier,
oh my gosh,
which
yes,
we're not going to show on this video, but it,
just
for me, I
terrifying.
love it.
Terrifying.
But it has like blocks out the whole day. It has my to-dos. It has, my goals and my weekly goals and my, monthly goals. All that stuff's set out.
You're like the guy version of Leslie Knope when I look at that. Like, are you a Parks and Rec fan?
I love Parks and Rec.
Okay,
yes.
So that's what I think of when I think of Leslie Knope, is your planner. I mean, that's the
yes.
But a compliment as much as I can. All
right. But I have to be careful that, again, to not be like, I'm sorry, we don't start dinner till 5:30. That's not how, you're supposed to be cleaning your room right now. I have to be careful to be more fluid and allow for those moments to happen. And actually, again, that's why I say it ties to the last one, because for me, it's about remaining in that moment and not so focused on, here's the 8 tasks that we have to get done today, and this day will only matter if we get all 8 tasks done. Right. But what about you? Is that something that you struggle with? Or
no, I think you hit it on the head with that, because really I'm not as much of the planner for them. Like, I'm okay with the open. I'm okay with waking up and going, what do you want to do today? Nothing. All right.
No,
I'm okay with that. But that's the thing. That's the way I am. I'm okay with letting time just kind of fill itself. Not all the time, but like, it's okay to have a Saturday where you stay in your pajamas all day and do nothing. Right. And if in that do nothing you find creativity, I'm all for it. Look, I'm a proponent of my kids need to be bored. There needs to be moments where they're bored. Because if I wasn't bored when I was a kid, half the creative stuff that goes on inside my head would have never developed. That's just, I mean, that's how I feel. Look, I was bored enough that I would think of stuff, and I tell my kids, I'm like, look, sometimes when I was a kid, some of my favorite toys were literally a balloon a stick, and a toilet paper roll. And they're like, what are you talking about, Dad? I'm like, well, a balloon would be my baseball or my football or whatever, right? And then I would have a stick, and that would be my baseball bat. And so I could play sports, and I could, or my basketball, whatever. And then the toilet paper roll, and they're like, yeah, I don't get that one. I'm like, well, that's a football. So I would set that on the ground behind the couch, and I'd take the 3 steps back and then the 2 steps over, and I would be a place kicker, and I would go run up and I'd kick the ball up and over the back of the couch, the ball, the toilet paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
And toilet paper rolls were great when you kick them, because then they go up and they'd even curve, and you're like, oh man, it was like the wind took it and everything. It was so much fun. But here's the thing. This really has nothing to do with what you're talking about, right? And what you're dealing with. But for me, that's why I think boredom is okay. And so for me, when I think about this and being their planner, because my wife is more of the planner like you, for me, the struggle comes in when I'm thinking, I need to stick to her plan. Like if she says dinner's around 5 or 6, I probably shouldn't throw a wrench in those plans. And so that's really where I struggle. It's not so much being the one that's there to entertain them. It's being the one that is trying to help keep them on schedule. And really the hardest part is, like, if my wife needs to do anything, if she has a task that she needs to go do and she needs that time, and I'm in charge of the 4 kids, and she says like, okay, I need 1 hour. I'm like, okay, 1 hour. Okay. And that's when I'm really like counting down the minutes, because it can be a struggle at times. Right. And for me, when I'm not a planner and I know there are certain things that need to be done, hey, there's an hour until dinner time. You need to make sure the baby's changed, dinner's ready, it's on the table, or it's bedtime. They need to brush their teeth, they need to get it. And then all of a sudden I have this pressure that is not really, it's not really there, but because I've put that self-pressure on me, wanting to make sure I'm, I'm pleasing my wife or sticking with the schedule really that she's really good with them on, then what happens is, much like tonight I had an issue where they're having dinner, and any other night I would just be able to enjoy dinner with them. And instead I'm going, hey, eat your food. Hey, eat your food. Hey, eat your food. Okay. Hey, come on. We got to, come on. Yep. Got to get going. Got to brush your teeth. Let's go. And so here I am being that planner for them, and that like keep the clock watcher, when really I could have just been enjoying a meal with my kids. And so that's where it's a hard for me. So for me, I noticed it. I noticed the other day that I walked into the room where my kids were. They instantly stopped what they were doing and they said, Dad, do we need to do something? And I was like, oh crap, I've done this too much. Because they like the instant I was around, they were like, oh crap, what are we gonna do, Dad? And I was like, okay, I need to dial back a little bit. I need to be like, and I think those things are healthy to kind of understand. It's that awareness thing, right? Where again, don't beat yourself up too much, but when you catch yourself, that gives you that extra incentive, right? To be like, okay, I'm going to spend more time with my kids, where I'm not always asking them to do something, right? That I'm like, hey, I'm just entering the room and seeing what you guys are up to, and let's play for a little bit, and then that will allow for those little moments. Again, it's not manufacturing those little moments, because like we said, it's really hard to do, right? It's really hard. Anytime that, if you've been a parent for any amount of time and you've tried to schedule something and we're all going to have fun at 7:30 and everyone's going to, sit down and enjoy the fireworks or whatever it is, it always just goes awry, right? Like there's always like something that happens, right? But these little moments that we're talking about, like you talked about at the beginning, the snow and all that kind of stuff, when you are able to hang in the moment and not be like their event coordinator, like we talked about, you're able to be in those moments and take advantage of when those things come up, when those things happen. But we have one more, right? We have one more to talk about. One more. And I think, this is a biggie for me. I don't know about for you, but for me, and there may be lots of dads that deal with this one, but this is all about unhealthy self-sacrifice. Okay. This is something that is really a difficult one for me. When I say unhealthy self-sacrifice, I'm talking like you either do so much for your children, or like the instance of I want to watch the Chiefs play, right? I want to watch the Chiefs game, and I don't, because I let somebody else watch a movie that they wanted to, or whatever, right? They had a baseball game, or they had this, whatever. And what happens is the unhealthy sacrifice is not that you chose to do that instead of the thing that you wanted to. It's that it's a continual pattern of you do things that are healthy and wonderful and supportive for your children, but at what cost? And that
Yeah.
cost is you're taking away that like core self, right? So I'm taking away those things that kind of add up to make me me. And the
Yeah.
problem with this, the thing that's really tricky with this is that what can happen is that if I spend enough Sundays not watching football like I want to because my family would like to have family time is awesome. But
Mm-hmm.
what happens is if that takes away from the core thing that is the thing that I
Right.
like, which is watching football, then even though I love family time, I'll start to resent my family for wanting to spend time with me.
Mm-hmm.
And that is
Mm-hmm.
completely unhealthy. So
Right.
that is a huge thing where, that's one example. There's lots of examples.
Right.
Um, you know, waiting to eat your dinner until everybody else is done, or and then you eat and all your dinner's always cold. That can be a thing that happens, right?
Right.
It's all these things, but like there is an unhealthy sacrifice that you're putting your kids first, but you're not taking care of yourself, or not doing those things that also make you happy in addition to making
Right.
making sure your kids are happy. So, and what about you? What does that mean to you? Is that similar
Yeah,
or?
I mean, yeah, I think so. I mean, it's one of those that like pre-COVID, I found an awesome group of guys that we play basketball twice a week at the Y. It's not obviously happening now, but that was a way that I was like, hey, I need to go play basketball and I need to find a way. That's my big outlet. Like, thankfully, I have like a goal in my backyard. So, literally between tough meetings, like if I have a meeting that I'm like, oh man, that was really heavy, or maybe like I have to work something out in my head, I always grab a ball. I always go grab a basketball. And I've done it almost in like I've done it in my whole career, even in offices. I'll bring a football in the office and I'll literally like pace. And I actually might have one in over here. But it's like a good way for me to like get that emotion out, get those things out. And I'm a much better dad when I do that. And I think you're right. This is like that balance thing, right? Where you can spend, especially during this COVID time, like it's been awesome to be able to have this time where I'm not having to commute. I'm not having to work a 12-hour day on set, that I'm around my kids a lot more. Like I wake up with them in the morning, we're making breakfast, like we're chit-chatting, and so none of us are having to run off to go do something, or I'm not hurrying to get to a shoot or something. Those are all great things, like that's an awesome thing, but you kind of have to strike that balance. And that's where it's like, for me, it's really staying true to who you are. Because one thing that I realized, and this is really hard because I kind of given up on sports for me, like in particular, as far as like me playing sports, because I was like, well, if I'm going to play sports, like that's, if I join a basketball league, that's going to take a whole night away from our family. Like then what am I off doing this off by myself? Like that doesn't feel like the shooting, right? What we talked about, the shooting, but I should be like spending time with my family, and that's taking that time away. But what I but what I realized, and this why this example is so powerful to me, is because when I started playing basketball consistently and I started regaining that competitive spirit that I had and having fun with friends and connecting with other dads, like it just made me an overall better human. And that then translated into, I should really coach my boys in basketball. Like that would be so much fun. My wife's like, I don't know why you haven't done that yet. And it's again because I had started killing that off. I'd started being like, you know what? We still have time for that. Like my kids aren't that interested. My oldest wasn't that interested. And so, I try to have them watch some games and they're not watching. So I just started killing that off as a way of like almost self-preservation. It's like, well, if they're not going to like it, then I'm not even going to bring them into it. And then I realized the opposite, actually, whenever I started playing. Now my boys will play basketball with me out in the backyard. And it's little bits. They're not playing hours of hoops with me. They'll shoot with me for 5-10 minutes, and we'll play a little game to 5, and that's it. And it's over, and it's that little moment. But it's like, that's what I remember. That's what I take away is oh my gosh, I got to play basketball with my boys, like that's so much fun. My daughter knows how to shoot a basketball, and she's even talking, which is so funny, she's even talking, hey dad, when COVID's over, I really want to join a soccer league. And I was like, what? Like you did not like soccer at all, but she's like, I want to play, I want to go do that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that makes me happy, it makes me more engaged, it really brings that out. So it's, you kind of have to, because like you said, it can be too much, or if it's like, hey, I'm gonna sit down and watch a 3.5 hour football game, Saturday and Sunday and Monday night, and and it can you kind of know when you're maybe getting a little out of whack. I think that's like a self-awareness thing. But this is one of those things that can really hang us up, because we want to, hey, I want to give my attention to my kids and do all this stuff, but like you said, sometimes it's too much and you start to resent things, or you'll start to shut down parts of you, and thinking that you're doing it for the better of the family, and that's not always the case.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's same thing, unhealthy sacrifice for your kids, but also think about, with your wife, your partner, you also don't want to do those unhealthy sacrifices with them either, because you don't want to resent your partner. Right. So it's not just the kids, it's a whole family thing.
Yes.
Living that unhealthy self-sacrifice is just too much. And listen, you're a dad. Okay. We're dads. You're a dad. Yep. We are not capable of doing it all by ourselves. Okay. So, my wife, we had the conversation tonight. My wife was saying, it's got to be stressful being the one that, is trying to bring in the income, because, my wife is primary caretaker. I mean, granted, we're both home, but my duty is I'm going to go out and I'm going to work and I'm going to try to make income. My wife is, I'm going to focus on making sure we raise these kids, and, we do it together, but at the same time, it's like, it's got to be stressful to do that and try to be able to do that. And you're right. But my unhealthy sacrifices when I say, you know what, I spend all my time out trying to make money, and then I come home and you guys don't want to do this or don't want to do that, and I deserve this. That's so unhealthy. Yes. And I just, there's so many different ways that can be done, and so many different ways that can. So that's, for me, again, that's a big one. That's one of our list of the 5 things we presented here to talk about, like these things that are getting in the way. And what can we do to get rid of them? This one's an easy one. I mean, I say that, but in theory, it's an easy one. You just take some time for yourself. I mean, don't forget who you are, whether it's self-care, whether it's like, hey, I got this beard, I want to add some beard oil, and you take 5 minutes and take care of yourself. That's a little bit different than you normally do. Like, I know that's a little thing, but that may just make you feel a little bit like, hey, I'm taking care of myself. I'm not sacrificing everything, right? That's maybe a poor example if you don't have
no,
a beard.
but I think Steven, you're right.
You'll never have a beard.
I'll never have a beard, so I don't know what beard oil is. Like, is that some kind of weird magic thing? I'll take it if it'll help me grow this out. But no, I think you're right. It's because they talk about it a lot with moms losing their identity when they have a child, right? And I think there's part of that with the dad as well, that when you're with your kids and your family and stuff, you can start to lose your identity, because again, in a traditional, like I'm kind of in that same, I go out and find the jobs and stuff like that, and Sarah is taking care of the kids and homeschooling and that kind of thing in that kind of traditional way. But it's like, I can get so focused on, I got to make money, I got to do the thing, and I got to get the job, that I'm not able to focus on the family at all, and then I lose completely who I am. And like another example for me is not only sports element, but like I started playing some video games again. Like I started playing like FIFA, which I absolutely love, and we've played, but like I started playing with my brothers, like where you can actually play online. I'm like, oh my God, I love this. And through that, like I'm able to play, there's this game, and free shout out, but it's called NBA Playgrounds. That's a lot like NBA Jam. It's basically like the new NBA Jam. And so, but I'll play with my boys and they absolutely love it, because it's like triple flips and you have the ball that goes on fire, and it's like most ridiculous basketball you've ever seen.
Yeah.
But it's like getting them excited about it. We play, they get to learn the players, and I'm like, this is how I learned all this stuff. And I'm finally realizing, wow, okay, like it wasn't just me watching games with my dad, which I definitely did, but like this got me into watching games, and they
Mm-hmm.
play. And so like my passions start to come out, and that's really what makes your family special. I think the positive thing of this is that's what makes you a special dad, is the things that you bring to the table, right? Like that's what makes me like a special dad to my family, you a special dad to your family, like those moments. And that's what can really bring that stuff out, is those passions, those drives that you have, that excitement can really rub off on your kids. And maybe they don't share that same excitement, but it does allow for some of those moments. And even like I'm even learning, like I'm a huge Warriors fan, by the way, in basketball, huge Warriors fan, even though they're not doing great this year, still super fan, love them.
Okay. You got two Jayhawks on the team. I'm with you.
Yeah, but like my son, when they were playing the Rockets a lot over the last few years, he's now a Rockets fan, but he's only a Rockets fan because they played against the Warriors and he was hoping they would beat the Warriors, right?
Nice.
But that's fun for me because I'm like, oh, that's totally fine. Like, be a Warriors. I remember that. Like, I'm a Cowboy fan. My dad's a Raider fan. I mean, how can we get like so different? You know what I mean? That's part of that, right? Like, yeah, of course I want him to be the same fan as me, but like that's part of the, hey, let's root for our teams, let's build this thing. Like those are the kinds of things that I think you as a dad and those people that are listening, you can really bring a lot to the table. Like, don't underestimate how you can really impact your family. I think that's the beautiful thing through all this is, you know, we brought up 5 things to kind of think about, kind of, you know, check on yourself, and in order to help you be able to take advantage of these little moments, but also just to realize like you have a lot in this relationship. Yeah. If you're in a traditional, like the dad breadwinner, the mom stays at home, even in that relationship, the dad still has a lot to bring to the table, for the kids, like, and for your spouse. Like you can even do that for your spouse. And so those are really powerful things that I hope other dads listening to this can take away. I mean, that would be amazing.
Absolutely. And Steven, I gotta ask you, have you ever seen Deadpool?
Yes.
Okay, this sounds like it's totally unrelated, I'm sure. So you know, if you've seen Deadpool, I'm sure you have this line. When I say it, I'm sure you'll hear it in your head. Colossus, right? Sorry, I've been watching the X-Men movies lately, so this is why it's in my head. But Colossus, right, big metal superhero, says, wait, it takes 4 or 5 moments. 4 or 5 moments. 4 or 5 moments is all it takes to be a superhero, right? We're talking about right now, and now I'm not the line anymore, but right now we are talking about enjoying these little moments, right? And these little moments, all it takes is a few little moments, whether it's 4, 5, 20, whatever. It takes a few moments, and these little moments, if you can find joy in them, these are the memories that will last with you, that you can take with you, and you remember, this is why I love being a dad. And your kids, on the flip side of that, your kids are going to go, this is why I love my dad. These 4 or 5 are these moments that stick in my head. So I know quoting Deadpool is not necessarily the most romantic of notions when I'm talking about being a father, but you know, that line works in what we're talking about, because it really doesn't take a lot, but it takes you, you know, looking at things differently. It takes you looking at those, taking your perspective and just flipping around a little bit and saying, yeah, maybe this is negative, but we've got something here. So dads, if you're out there listening to this, thank you for listening to us. I hope these, you know, these 5 things that may be like hiccups that are causing you some trouble when it's time to enjoy these moments. Hopefully when they come up again, you can go, okay, we talked about that. I heard listened about that. You know, I know what to do. At least I think I know what to do. And so that's what we're here for. That's where we're here to help. Hopefully these moments help. And you know, enjoy your kids. It's awesome being a dad, and it's also tough. So enjoy it when you can. Steven, you got anything else you want to add?
No, that's it. We really appreciate you guys listening. Don't forget to subscribe so you can get all the latest episodes. We're actually going to be putting out some extra bonus episodes that we're super excited about, little micro content compared to these episodes. So make sure and hit the subscribe button. And any feedback that you have, we'd love to hear your reviews on the podcast in any of the way that you're actually listening. It helps us get up in the rankings and do all the algorithm things in order to get the word out to more dads, which is what our mission is really to share this information with more dads so they don't feel alone, that they can take some of this nuggets of information and be better dads for their spouse and their kids. So definitely leave us a review. You can catch us at It's a Dad Thing podcast on most of the social medias at this point, and then even at gmail.com if you want to hit us up directly. Send us your comments or any questions that you have. We'd love to address those as we go forward. We have some super exciting episodes, and we can't wait to share them with you guys. So thank you so much again for listening to It's a Dad Thing podcast.
Thanks, guys. Bye.